Hello and welcome back to my Let's Play of Dirt Rally. We are here at stage 3 after victory in the Monaco rally, which takes us to joint top overall. We finished second and first, our opponent has finished first and second, so that makes perfect sense. And so we are now here in Germany, a rally full of pretty flat tracks that are largely all to do with long straights interspersed with pretty sharp bends.
4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Although I will say that the Flugzeugring, or I'm probably absolutely butchering that pronunciation, is probably one of the more twistier ones. It seems to, it weaves its way around these like sort of
turn hairpin right, don't cut, opens.
It certainly is a very windy track through the sort of mess of
into left 6 long
tarmac that's been dropped on this airfield in Germany.
Into turn
and
left
so
4, 80,
you know,
crest 80.
they've definitely weaved a spaghetti-like sort of path through all of the different you know, around all of these routes to try and come up with a good complicated and quite difficult track to tackle.
100.
Yep, that was another case of braking too early and then braking too late. Oh well.
Turn hairpin left, don't cut.
So yeah, so as you can see, we end up with, you pretty much will hit max speed, at least in these little 1960s cars, around this track certainly.
Turn right 1, ditch outside, narrows. 100
they actually give you the space to really open it up down some of these very long stretches. Which is a lot of fun, and then you've got to bring it back down to a screeching halt as you desperately got to try and get around the next
80.
sharp bend that's inevitably around the corner.
80. Turn hairpin left, don't cut. 80. Turn square right, don't cut.
So I think from looking at the list of tracks that we've got here, we've got 2 tracks that, and then we do the reverse of them both. So we'll have to do this one in reverse, I think, at the end. So it should be prety familiar. In a lot of ways, that makes this set sort of, or it makes it kind of some of the easier ones always. If you can, yeah, if you have the opportunity to get pretty familiar with the track, even going in the opposite direction, that often gives you.
100 through dip.
You know, I find that your brain just sort of latches onto little things that you'll be like, oh, I remember that this corner's very tight, or I remember that there's a long stretch here that I can really open the gas for.
Caution, braking deceptive, turn right 1.
As you can see.
Into turn right 3, don't cut, down.
Great.
Keep in, rocks on exit, 100.
That worked nicely.
Crest 100 down.
Didn't need to really flick out the tail there, but oh well.
Turn acute left, don't cut.
Especially braking downhill, brake early, brake early. That wasn't too bad.
100 over crest to finish.
And we'll get there with a good, decent lead. Again, Germany is probably the one, because it's so flat, if you can stay, you know, on course. Well, obviously, if you can stay on course, but as in, you can have, you can pull out some pretty damn quick times if you're just able to, you know, not lose yourself in the mess of sort of tarmac around it, with the lack of real bumps and, you know, proper issues with the surface. You're very unlikely to sort of get thrown about, and also it's probably one of the most generous areas in the game, in the sense that if you go off the tarmac, unlike in Monaco, say, where you're going to hit a wall, or you know, you very quickly
Caution, tight
suffer,
chicane, right entry,
you know, some
150.
sort of problem because, you know, the tracks are very narrow. Here you've got quite a lot of leeway that if you drift off, not only do you have, you know, this sort of acres of space, but also a lot of the time you don't immediately get sort of thrown off the track because the ditches at the side of the road are not particularly,
turn square left down through
you know, they're not
80.
particularly deep, and you've got a lot of flexibility in that sense in comparison to the other tarmac tracks, and especially the gravel, where
And left 6, 170.
you know, a lot of the time you've got quite a lot of difficult camber on the courses, and beyond that,
Caution, turn left 4, don't cut.
so just staying on the track is tougher, but then
100
also on top of that, the punishment for
Crest.
going off the track is a lot
150. Caution, turn
stiffer
right 4,
too,
don't
because you get really,
crest, 250
you
through
know,
dip.
you really suffer if you end
Caution,
up sort
braking,
of,
turn square right, don't cut. Rocks
if you're
inside
in
and on exit.
Finland, then you
Into
end up
turn
going through
left
some
3,
trees.
don't
If you're
cut.
in Sweden, you've got to be really, really accurate to stay between the snowbanks and not spin. If you're
Left
in,
6, 150. Double caution,
if you're in
left
Greece,
6, immediate turn
then
square right,
you know a
don't
lot of
cut.
the time it's very, very narrow, and you've got quite severe
100.
sort of cliff faces to avoid falling
Right
down.
6,
So there's a
Buffalo
lot
Junction.
of environmental hazards that really this
100.
very
Jump maybe, 100.
flat sort of
Caution, braking, hairpin right,
field
tight,
area
rails.
doesn't have so much of.
Left 6, right 6.
Obviously not ideal there, but oh well.
60 dip.
Should have been braking a lot sooner.
5
I
past
still think we're
junction.
going to be picking up time, which is
Care right 4, don't
pretty
cut.
mad at the moment, which is, but
Into
also
care,
obviously a
left
very
5
good
rocks
sign
outside, past
for
junction.
going, for continuing through here.
Right 6, long, 80. Left 5, half long.
The little man-made chicanes
Right 6 past
that
junction.
we saw at the start of this,
80 past junction.
I imagine they must be done
Caution, turn left 1, don't cut.
in the actual rally, but very much sort
And
of
turn left 1
not
over crest, don't cut.
what I've always thought, you know, the spirit of rallying was. But in a lot of ways, the sort
300.
of the way that you've got a very man-made, sort of artificial
200 through
track shape, especially in like the Flugzeugring, which
Keep
we
mid over
the
big
first
jump,
one we drove, where
200.
you're very much making those corners, rather than it just being the
Caution,
way
right
that
5 over crest,
the
jump
road
maybe,
follows the
descent in.
natural contours of the land. No, you are actively choosing, rather
Braking,
than going
turn
straight
square
on
right,
at this
don't
section.
cut.
No, you've
Care,
got
rocks on
to,
exit. 80.
you've very
Turn
much
right,
got
1, don't
to,
cut. Care, rocks on exit.
you know, you've got to make a very sharp turn here onto
100
this part
past
of the
junction.
track, and then you've got to do it onto this part of the track.
80
And
crest, left 6 past junction,
I don't
150.
know, it's never been something that I've been.
Right 5,
You
don't
know,
cut
from my
past
perspective,
junction.
I've always seen rally as being,
Left 5 past junction.
you know, giving you
100
that
to
real
finish.
visceral feeling of having the wheels on the ground and properly, you know, feeling every sort of bump in the land through each tire. And even in, you know, Monaco, it works. You know, Monaco almost always gets a pass because of its sort of history and stuff like that. But the way the courses wind up through the hills, you know, is in some ways like the only way it could have been done, I guess you could say. You know, it's about our desire to conquer you know, to conquer these locations, to conquer the environment and the I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm just rambling at this point. But you know, the way that, you know, we want to build roads, we want to be able to traverse even some of the most
200
difficult
past junction.
or treacherous terrain, and we find a way through it. And then, you know, we take these incredibly ridiculous vehicles with mad amounts of power and grip and all this, and then we fly through it at ridiculously high speeds. And just from that idea, I would say that I don't necessarily feel like
turn left one, don't cut, 80.
This gets the same sort of inspiration that, you know, the older, or at least what I've seen from older rally games used to do. And obviously, you know, I'm very much biased, you know, and I'm not even a huge rally fan. I find it a real pity that, in general, rally is something that you don't get to see a lot on, say, terrestrial television, stuff like that.
Caution braking, turn right.
And even then, I've seen sort of like the stuff that I have seen from like the World Rally Championship and a lot of that. I find doesn't always, you know, you'd imagine at the highest level possible that the quality of the coverage and the amount of insider info that you would get would be even better. But a lot of the time, I find it sort of it can disappoint in comparison to the coverage that you get for stuff like, you know, everything Formula 1 nowadays. You know, it's got its own Sky Sports channel for a reason, and they definitely make the most of that with everything that they, you know, all of the analysis and all of the stuff that they showcase on that. And I think it would be really interesting if you took rallying and really truly sort of built it on that, because, you know, there must still be a, I think there's definitely still a love for it there. And I mean, you look at some of the older courses, like there's some classic videos of people like Colin McRae and stuff like that, you know, driving through courses where there are people just streaming onto the road, and you're like, these people are absolutely insane, you know, standing on the side of the course. And I imagine it's an absolute nightmare for the event organisers and stuff like that. The amount of distance that we're getting to second is worrying for the second place driver.
Turn right 4 through dip.
That was a poor corner, very poor. But as in, like, I'm thinking the guy who usually finishes second may well be finishing. May not be finishing second in this, just because we don't usually get this much of a lead.
Caution braking, turn square right, deceptive.
But anyway, yeah, so you know, there's definitely been, you know, huge amounts of fervour for rallying, and I think it would be really, really interesting if we could actually bring it back into public consciousness and really bring it home, because it's not something that at all is sort of well showcased, even in this era. See, the fact that I didn't lose any time there despite that big incident, I'll be interested to see if the I think it's the English guy, yeah, there you go, he's not there, there you go, he boiled his brake fluid and fell down to 10th, so that obviously can happen. It's very bad for him because he's now in 6th instead of being close behind me in 2nd. I'm pretty much guaranteed to finish 1st now, unless I have a nightmare of this last track, which is nice. But to be fair, it's very difficult to actually, you know, it's very difficult to wreck your car in this rally in comparison to Greece or Monaco or stuff like that. So still looking very good. We should be able to get a very good lead here. We got to push ahead, try and get as much speed as possible, get as much of a gap as we can, and, you know, just for personal reasons, you always want to do as well as you can. Always want to see how far you can push the vehicles through. 3, 2, 1, go. So yeah, I'm all for more rally, all for more rallying. Sort of, I think it is a form of racing that does not get. Turn hairpin right, that it offers something very distinctly different to a lot of 350 over small crests. To a lot of other sports. Caution, and I think left 2 over crest, don't cut. For that reason, it should be promoted more and should actually have turn square left. You know, and obviously I might be absolutely rubbish. It's been a while since I've I might be talking absolute rubbish is what I mean. It's been a while since I've really, you know, sort of myself been engaged. But judging by the fact that, you know, the World Rally Championship results barely get published in newspapers and stuff like that, whilst, you know, the Formula One is, or can be, you know, back page news in the sports pages, I feel like it says quite a lot about the sort of the priorities
turn square left, don't cut. 80.
and the sort of the hierarchy of the sporting
300.
Of how the sports work.
Care, keep left over small crest. Turn left 4 and turn a Q.
But yeah, I think it also. But that may all just be the fact that because rally itself has such a good relationship with sort of the video game medium, it is by far, as far as I can tell, the best racing sort of outlet for video games.
Into square left.
It means that
into turn left 5,
in the sense that in, you know, Formula One or other, you know, sort of track racing sims and stuff like that, you know, you have to be committed to doing the same thing over and over and over again. And, you know, you have to go around that circuit, and I find it tiring. You know, I've had Formula One games. I loved, you know, I pay attention to the Formula One season and all this sort of stuff. I love my racing. But even in Formula One games and stuff like that, I find it difficult to stay committed to, you know, a full season if, you know, every single race you're like having to do, you know, even at like, you know, even 10 or 15 laps of the same course going round. Whereas what rally obviously offers you is, especially if you can do something like what DiRT did, which I know has its controversies in sort of the dirt racing community and stuff like that, as to how it sort of compares. And I know a lot of people, as a rally sim, it fails, which is, you know, certainly something I can't say. It's not something it's not a game I've played, but it does ask that question. If you can do that sort of procedural generation of rally tracks, which is exactly what rally's all about in a lot of ways, you know, the point being is that you deal with it as you approach it. And in a lot of ways, the issue that this game has, and the issue that I've heard has also happened in sort of DiRT 2.0 and stuff like that, is that because there's a limited number of tracks, quite significantly limited number of tracks, it means that you get to a point where the co-driver is nowhere near as important as he should be, especially in a rally context. So, another good race there. We see Miller still struggling. He's down in 7th overall, which will put us amazingly in position for our World Championship, as we are, you know, now have a very good lead. With that lead in mind, I think if we finish on the podium in the last 3, which are Wales, Sweden and Finland, then we will be in very good stead going forwards, and we should be able to, I mean, we're definitely going to get promoted, I think, with a 20-point lead on 3rd and, you know, nearly a 30-point lead on 4th. So we shouldn't have any problem getting promoted, and then things will start tightening up, and it'll be harder and harder to keep those victories coming through. But still, very good. I'm happy with that. So I hope you have enjoyed this episode. Hope you've enjoyed the little discussion that we've been sort of talking about these things. And yeah, hopefully we can keep it going forwards. I look forward to the next rally, whichever one it may be. Again, I won't find out now because I may want to change the livery again. But yeah, no, I hope to see you on the next one, where we'll be doing stage 4 of our DiRT Rally Open Championship in the 1960s, Mini Cooper S. So I will see you then.